And welcome into part 2 of our draft episode. We're doing a rookie draft. Essentially, we're breaking down picks 9 through 16 on this show. We broke down picks 1 through 8 on the previous show, so go check that one out if you haven't already. We got Jeff and Will from Media. Thank you guys for joining me. We talked about some guys previously. We're going to talk about a few more today, some surprise landing spots, especially in this one, some guys that really had us scratching our heads. But we're going to get right into it. Emeka Egbuka, he went to Tampa Bay. They already have Chris Godwin and Mike Evans both getting paid. Are you trusting Baker Mayfield to support 3 fantasy relevant options with Bucky Irving in that offense? I'm not. At the 109, I'm out on Egbuka. You guys, Will, you had concerns about his speed pre-draft, and now he ends up in Tampa. Are you completely out on him, even maybe as a first-round pick?
I wouldn't touch him in the first. High to mid-second. Yeah. And it's a combination of speed and where he's at now. It's just you got to think, okay, so he's wide receiver 3 for at least 2 years, and then what do they look like 2 years from now? Who's the quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
Who's, him and Bucky and God knows what. So to me, that's a second-round pick. That's not a first-round pick.
But you've even got to question if he's wide receiver 3. They still got McMillan. They got a couple other guys there. So I'm like, good Lord, what is happening? It was like, are you must automatically think that.
Jeff froze, but it's okay. I'm sure he'll be back because he wants to talk about the next player. At the 110, running back Kaleb Johnson, who went to Pittsburgh. This is Jeff's guy. Jeff called it on our previous show. He said that this would be a good landing spot for him. So at the 110, are you happy with Kaleb Johnson going to Pittsburgh, Jeff?
I sure am, since they don't have a quarterback. He might have to play quarterback as well. Which is why I was just like, why didn't you just draft Justin Milroe somewhere in there, man? So, I think it's a great spot for him. I really do.
He should be the first and second down back. Warren will come in and be the third down guy. He'll work in, obviously. But I like this landing spot for him. I think he'll get volume here. And then hopefully the way he can be fantasy relevant is that Pittsburgh's offense is just good enough to get him some touchdowns. Will, you like Johnson at the 110?
I like Kaleb Johnson. I think he could be the steal of the draft, and I think there's potential for him to be the steal of the fantasy draft 3-4 years from now. Because he'll go late first, maybe a little bit higher, depending on how things shake out. But I think people might look back a couple years from now and be like, he should have been 103, 104 in this draft.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Next, we got at the 111 and the 203. We're going to kind of lump these guys together because I feel the same way about both of them, and that's the Chicago Bears pick, Colson Loveland and Luther Burton. I love both of the players. I think that they were great prospects, and they can be functional in the NFL. Unfortunately, they go to a team with DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and Cole Kmet, already 3. They add 2 more within the first 40 picks of this draft, and they have questions at quarterback. They have DeAndre Swift at running back. So for me, Loveland and Burton will both see less volume than what maybe they could have if they went elsewhere, which makes them less valuable now and makes it less likely that they break out, especially since DJ Moore's under contract. Rome Odunze was just drafted last year. Like, this offense has weapons, and that should be good for Caleb Williams' development in the NFL. But for fantasy, I honestly wouldn't be touching any of these weapons. Maybe DeAndre Swift is the only guy that has some fantasy value right now because he's their only running back. But yeah, I think both Loveland and Burton at their current picks would be pass for me. Jeff, what do you think?
I have a little bit of a different take, as a guy that is still kind of high on Caleb Williams, especially with Ben Johnson being there. I think it's going to lead towards less running and more passing now with the offensive line built up. And, you looked at the Lions, they were able to sustain 3 wide receivers. Well, I'll say 2 wide receivers and a tight end, that gave a lot of fantasy production. So I think these guys, I'm a little bit higher on Burton than I am on the tight end.
Yeah, because if they do what the Lions did, and they can support 2 wide receivers and 1 tight end, you got 2 wide receivers between DJ Moore, Burton, and Roma Dunze, and 1 of the tight ends between Loveland and Komet. It just scares me there. But they did like to run the ball in Detroit, so I'm hoping DeAndre Swift can see that. Will, what is your take on this offense?
I just, it was one of those nights you're like, you got to be kidding me, right? Guys, you were like, okay, I can't wait where they're going to land. Where am I going to rank them in my board? And you're like, really? The whole night was that. The whole 3 days was like, really? And so I'm a little bit higher on Loveland because I think his career probably plays out better. Will it be with the Bears the whole time? I don't know. But I think I'm a little bit higher on Loveland just because I think the Bears, Burton at the most, unless Odunze gets hurt, his future at the most is wide receiver 2. And if that's the case and they got contracts in the future, you're not even sure where Burton is 4 years from now.
I can see Burton crashing out early into this. If he's not getting play, he's already a guy that teams have said has, an attitude issue and a work ethic issue. And you put that guy in a situation where he's maybe the 4th or 5th target in this offense. Yeah. It's scary. But we both love Burton. We had him as our wide receiver 1 coming in, just based on his physical abilities. But
so, it scares me because I don't know what the short and long-term mix. If you're drafting a first-round pick, and someone's probably going to draft him in the first round. Mm-hmm. Like, you want to know, like, okay, this guy got drafted and is playing with Mahomes. Then you're like, okay, I can see a future there. Or, whatever quarterback you want to plug in. But the Bears make me nervous because I think by the time Williams figure it out, he'll be at the end of that rookie's contract, and then what? So then where's he going? Mm-hmm. Right? And so I still think he's a probably high second-round pick, but I'm worried.
True. Yeah, that's the thing. When you have a guy like that, you want to make sure he's going, and he is the solidified wide receiver 1. Clearly not that with Burton.
Yeah, but if you took off their original weapons that Chicago had and you just gave Caleb Williams, Loveland, and Burton, this would be a completely – these guys would probably be like 102, 103 territory.
If they didn't have all the other pieces and they finally got to get him some pieces, they'd be top 6 in this draft.
Yeah, we got the next guy at the 112 end of the first round is going into a place that needs help, and that's RJ Harvey going to Denver. Oh, yeah. He went higher than I think a lot of people expected him to in the draft, and he went to one of, if not the biggest need for this team is the running back position. So, Will, what do you think about RJ Harvey in Denver? Are you in on him?
Yes, and by the time you start your Dynasty rookie, he'll be top 5. Because the speculation is just going to keep feeding itself. And every owner, if you're sitting at 5, if you want him, you got to take him in. He will not be back at 15.
Yeah. Jeff, what do you think about Harvey?
I feel a little bit snake bit on by Javonte Williams, even though that wasn't a Sean Payton pick. And one guy I do actually trust in drafting running backs is Sean Payton. Only thing I'm looking at, though, is, normally that person that I've looked more of the way of Alvin Kamara. RJ Harvey is not that. He's a little bit smaller, builds a little bit different. So that's the only thing. And looking at him, is he going to be more of a guy that's out of the back catching passes, or what exactly is he going to be in that offense? And, there's something about Denver running backs as an elder statesman in fantasy where when Shanahan was a coach, never knew who was going to be that definitive number 1 back. So on paper, it seems like this is the best thing to happen. This is a surefire first-round pick for fantasy in a running back, but then the historical look of it and everything else, I don't know.
Yeah, I think to me, if you can get him at the end of the first round, he's guaranteed volume, and that's for running backs. Like the most, like you can take the talent, sure, but if you have volume and maybe not that high end talent, like we're looking at Nash and Genty, you can still produce in fantasy. So I think to me, RJ Harvey is definitely a value. Moving on to someone that's maybe not a value. I don't know if we have too much to say about Jackson Dart to the New York Giants. Is anyone here in on Jackson Dart in New York? They brought Jameson, Russ. We're all out on
Right.
Jackson Dart.
So now you're drafting for what? Your taxi squad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
4th round pick.
Yeah, I would take him in Superflex, probably a little higher than that, but yeah, I
Round.
don't like him at beginning of the first at 201. I think I'm out.
And again, the same thing, being an elder statesman. I still remember the same comparisons when it was what's the guy? Blaine, what's his
Gabbert?
Gabbert, yep. Oh, he's pro ready. He's this dude's gonna end up being a backup again, man. I'm telling you right now, it's the same things. When they said I see a little bit of Josh Allen in him, I was like, oh, okay. When you got to reach that far and bring that up, I was like, yeah, I don't trust it, man.
I don't love him as a prospect, and I don't love the Giants as a team. They very well could have their head coach and GM fired, and then the new regime comes in, and my guess is they probably won't like Jackson Dart. So, I don't like that. We got Matthew Golden as the next pick off the board in Green Bay. Will shaking his head no.
Will is shaking his head.
Golden to me comes in and could be the wide receiver 1 in Green Bay. I think you're taking a risk. Jaden Reed is there. I'm not super concerned about the rest of their wide receiver room because they struggle to stay healthy. All of their wide receiver room, to be honest, struggles to stay healthy.
Exactly.
Well, look at their draft. They're not sure about their wide receiver room.
Yeah.
Right. What? 2 wide receivers in the first 3 rounds?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but Golden he could be their guy, and I think he's worth a pick at this spot in the draft.
Right.
He could very well see the volume that you would need from him. And Jordan Love has shown that he can put up numbers and put up stats. Maybe he's not an elite quarterback in the NFL, but he's good for fantasy, and he can support wide receiver options. So I'm in on Golden at this spot. I wouldn't be picking him over a guy like RJ Harvey, who we just talked about, but I'm definitely taking him over a guy like Jackson Dart.
Yeah, I agree. Are
you like he's going beginning of the second round? Do you think that's an okay spot for Golden, or you would wait till mid?
I would move him down just a little bit because I actually think there's a couple wide receivers on our list that are higher than him.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, what do you think?
Just because of where he's going and he has the opportunity. Christian Watson is out,
Out.
Yeah, out. Yeah. Jaden Reed,
I like Jaden.
I like him too, but he's clearly not the guy. Yeah. They don't really have a guy. I love Romeo Dobbs, but
don't you feel the Packers have entered this weird? They can't find a wide receiver 1 now. They keep bumping at the wall
forever,
and they've been trying. They've been trying to find the next wide receiver 1. I think they have a lot of good wide receiver 2s. They do not have a dominant wide receiver 1.
Maybe it'll be Golden.
And that's what I'm thinking. I mean,
this is the next one that maybe it'll stick, Will.
One thing you can say, nobody on that roster has his speed. So
yeah. They got Mecole Hardman. What are you talking about?
Nehemiah.
Mecole Hardman had that speed. He's been in the league for 8 years now? So I'm sure it's not that same speed.
Watson had the speed.
He has the speed. He just can't stay on the field.
I like Golden.
He had the speed and didn't have hands.
People have to be very careful with Golden about their expectations. Yeah. That's all I'm saying is so. Okay.
Yeah, we got the 204 and 205 here. 2 more wide receivers I just briefly want to talk about. Jaden Higgins goes to Houston, also with Noel, and also goes to Houston. Teammates there in college. And then Trey Harris goes to the Chargers. If you're on the clock at the 204, which of those 2 players with Higgins or Harris would you want, Will?
Harris.
Harris?
I actually think Harris has the potential to be wide receiver 1 with the Chargers.
You're right.
You don't think Jaden Higgins is going to come in and overtake Nico Collins?
Well, if Nico gets hurt again,
Yeah, I guess if Nico's hurt.
That was the thing. Yeah, I don't think he overtakes anyone, but now, but you got Christian Kirk there as well.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, it's kind of like you got to wait and see what shakes out. But I do love both of those Iowa State receivers. But
it would have been nice if they went to separate teams, so maybe you could be excited. The Chargers did bring back Mike Williams, and obviously they have Ladd McConkey, so both of them will have to kind of earn their targets in this new offense. But with
and the Chargers like to run the ball, so
they drafted Hampton and they have not.
Right. If you're taking Harris, it's a I think it's good value in the second because it's not a year 1 thing. It's probably a year 3 thing where you see the production go up.
Yeah, him and McConkey being tied to Herbert definitely helps their value. So there we go. There's picks 9 to 17 realistically. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, go check out the other video if you haven't already. And thank you, Jeff and Will, for joining me. It's been a pleasure. Let's go Lakers tonight.
I
hope they keep it going.
Got my Anthony Edwards jersey upstairs. I'm gonna go put it on.
Later.
Yeah.